Barker. Here. Bonnet.
Here.
Fox.
Here.
Kauth.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
McPherson. Morgan Maxwell is absent. Pendrell.
Here.
Plucker is absent. Prestai is absent. Quinn. Quinn.
Here.
Riddick is absent. Salgado. Sotolongo absent. And Kratz.
Here. It's no excuse. Yeah, I have one, thanks. First, the announcement on the Open Meetings Act. We have a copy of the Open Meeting Act on the wall over here. If anybody needs to or wants to take a look at it, you're welcome to do that. Next item is approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a motion and a second on that?
A motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Barker.
Yes.
Bonnet.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Kauth.
Yes.
Kennedy.
Yes.
Pendrell.
Yes.
Quinn. Salgado. And Kratz.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item number 4, excuse me, is the assignment of public suggestions and charter articles to the committees. With that, Mr. Indenbosch will give some explanation.
I will. Bernard Indenbosch, Deputy City Attorney. This is as much probably for the members of the audience, but as we had talked about before, there was an email set up for members of the public to make suggestions. That email was open through last Friday. I did send the entire charter convention, and we posted on the web page, to the mayor's page, the 18 suggestions that I had received through early afternoon on that day. There were 3 additional suggestions that came in later Friday afternoon and later Friday evening. I did send those out to the members of the convention on Saturday morning. This particular item is just to make clear to everybody the items that are assigned to each committee, and you'll notice each committee is assigned 2 articles of the charter. The purpose of that is to allow you to review those articles of the charter, and if there are things that you believe should be discussed or recommendations that the committee would like to make, separate and apart from those suggested by other people, this gives you an opportunity to do that. I've also assigned community suggestions to it. There was a list that I prepared. I put them in order of when I received them. Some of the committee suggestions were multiple. I did include in the committee suggestions those that were made orally at this particular convention. For example, the suggestions by Mr. Dodge were added to that particular list and are identified for discussion. It's my understanding that after I finish talking, this tells everybody what's being assigned to each committee. There'll be a public comment period for members of the public to talk. This meeting will probably adjourn relatively quickly, but that the committees will then convene. We'll have committees, one in the back room, a couple in the back, and then I've made arrangements for the city council conference room to be available as well for each of the committees to meet and discuss the articles as well as those suggestions before them, with the hope and it may be necessary for subcommittees to set up another meeting time just because of the volume, but we hope that you'll be able to make a report to us. And then ultimately, once we have the recommendations that were made from the committee, as well as the recommendations we've already talked about, that each of those items would appear before you and an opportunity for you to make recommendations to the council. So the committees obviously are going to determine what recommendations they want to make out of their committee, and that there'll be a public hearing on those items prior to the time you vote as to whether to make a recommendation to the council or not. So I wanted to say that, also make it clear to members of the public that there will be an opportunity to discuss particular recommendations that this convention is making at a point in the future as well. So.
Okay, with that, before we take public comment, just want to make some quick assignments. I guess the governance structure subcommittee will be back here. The administration mayor's office subcommittee be up in that corner. Finance and miscellaneous will be in the other corner. And finally, the human resources and legislative will be in the council office, council chamber. They have an office there. With that, we will open this up to public comment. I see a few people here. When you make your comments, I'd like you to state what you would want to change or what you're proposing, and then give your reasoning for it. And I'd appreciate it if you'd be, not repeat, be succinct in your comments. With that, I open up to any public comments. Anybody? Okay. Well, state your name first.
Sure thing. My name's Scott Blake, 2316 North 52nd Street, a couple blocks away from Reverend Barker in District 1. I actually emailed this letter right on Friday. Mr. Indabas said that he is going to be forwarding that email to the council members. I'm specifically talking about filling council vacancies. This was discussed, I think, on May 26th. I just wanted to give a little bit of context. I kind of have a critique of the way it was presented, and just some context, some history. So I won't go through my entire letter. Mr. Indabas said you are going to get that email.
They've actually already received it. I emailed it to them on Friday.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'll make this quick. There's been 10 vacancies on the city council. Rich Pauls was the only outgoing council member to vote for his replacement. I did all this research going back to 1956 when the first city council meeting happened. Again, he was the only outgoing council member to vote for his replacement. I found a Nebraska state statute. It's in the email. It clearly says there's a vacancy in city council. The remaining members of the city council shall vote to fill that vacancy. I then have quotes from countless World Herald articles. And honestly, the real reason I'm here, Mr. Kratz, you were the city attorney, I believe, since 99 or 98. There you go. So you might remember that there were 2 specific vacancies. Lee Terry resigned in 99. The Omaha World Herald said he is not legally allowed to participate in the process and won't vote on his replacement. A couple years later, Sabi Anazaldo, sorry about that name, also served on the council for longer than any of his colleagues, won't participate in the nomination process. And then as far as getting back to Rich Pauls, Mr. Kennedy, you were correct. The vote was 5-2. But Rich Pauls endorsed Colleen Brennan before the vote, and Ben Gray said he voted for Brennan because that's who Pauls wanted to replace him. All of my research, I cannot find one endorsement. Again and again, it says, this is another quote from Sabi Anazaldo in 99, as far as a vote or a strong say, I think that belongs to the remaining 6 members of the council. So, Mr. Kratz, what changed? I know you retired right before the vacancy process. Did something change in the charter? You actually participated, I know, in 2 charter conventions. Did something happen at that most recent charter convention between Lee Terry and Colleen Brennan? I'll leave it there. If you guys have any questions, you can respond to my email or ask me now.
Any questions?
For the city attorney, is it allowed under charter to have a current councilman be able to do that? Because I understand the state may have election rules, and they give some deference to the charter. So how did that work on that? And I'm trying to figure that out, if we have to take it our way.
I guess I'll go back a little bit. I don't remember the situation with Mr. Terry. As I recall, I thought he might have resigned before the selection was made, and same with Mr. Anzado. But I don't remember for sure. And he probably researched it, so.
So the reason that I brought up specifically Lee Terry and Anazaldo, they did not vacate their seat until after the vote. And not only did they not vote for their replacement, they did not participate in the interview process. And Lee Terry was replaced by a Democrat. And so you could imagine that Lee Terry would not want that seat to go to a Democrat.
That's probably true. And I will say, maybe Matt has some more recent thoughts on that. Depends on the statute that you're referring to. I'm kind of looking for it in here, but I can't find it offhand.
32-568.
Okay. Not sure what that is, but it may not apply to the
I
city.
have it in quotes.
Understand, but he said it's chapter 32.
-568.
Yeah.
I even bought 15 copies because I kind of wasn't sure if
Alright.
you got my email. I should share my copies with you.
That's fine. That might be small. Respond or reply to a smaller town or city.
Cities of the metropolitan class.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Could have been wrong.
out of fairness, I think that what I'll say this, Mr. Kennedy, you've raised the question, it's a fair question, I think it's a legal question, I don't necessarily want Mr. Kratz to.
No,
do it.
that's why I
So
said council.
Is it okay if Mr. Kuzi wants to reply, that's fine, otherwise, I mean, I can I'll provide a written response to the convention if you prefer, if you'd like.
Yeah, that's the only thing, is I think that's probably gonna come down to governance, the committee I'm on. And regardless of whether it is, I don't care about the right or wrong, I didn't vote for it. And the outcome, it's behind us, but if we're gonna vote on something that's dealing with the charter, elections, or anything, I wanna know what's allowed by state law and what's not allowed by state law, as a member of a committee, that's all. And thank you for doing the research, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Fox here too. Scott, I appreciate what you sent and the time you put into it. I sit on the same committee, and I'm looking forward to hearing the response from City Law too.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public on any item?
Hello, my name's Peter Fenkhauser. I live at 4319 Seward Street. I work at Amplify Arts as a co-director. I also teach at UNO, and I'm on the advisory board of the Kiewit Luminarium, which is a new discovery center, kind of anchoring the riverfront development downtown. I'm really excited to have learned more about this charter convention process, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of Amplify Arts, the artists with whom we work, and a bunch of other arts organizations here in Omaha, to make a couple of recommendations to the Home Rule Charter. The first of those recommendations is to amend Article 3 of the City Charter to include Section 3.20, a Department of Cultural Affairs. So in order to compete with cities that match Omaha in size and attract and retain creative talent, we need a well-organized and thoughtfully led municipal Department of Cultural Affairs that will effectively situate Omaha as a dynamic, vibrant city where artists can live, work, and access meaningful support. In order to kind of stem the creative brain drain from which Omaha suffers, I think we're all pretty well aware that that's a condition that's pretty present here. This department would provide services and cultural experiences for the city's residents and visitors, like the installation of public artwork, placemaking. It would also provide operational support for arts organizations, individual artists, and administer a 1% for Art program at the city level. Our second recommendation is to amend Article 4 of the City Charter to include Section 4.11, a Cultural Affairs Commission. So this commission would kind of expand on the responsibilities of the existing Public Art Commission and expand their purview to include oversight for department activities and programs that I just sort of ran through quickly. I think when we think about the growth and economic development happening in cities like Austin and Boise, places that are sort of comparable to Omaha in size, we have to acknowledge that they have really strong cultural sectors. And the bedrock of any cultural sector is artists. If we're going to build a more vibrant city and a city that attracts people who want to live and work here to become a more economically unshakable place, I think a Department of Cultural Affairs is just the thing to do that. Our co-signers, in addition to Amplify Arts, supporters of these recommendations are the Union for Contemporary Art, BFF Omaha, Project, Bluebird Cultural Initiative, Film Streams, and a list of individual arts workers and artists that are all included in the email I submitted on Friday. So thank you again for opening this process up to public comment. Appreciate it.
Does the committee have any questions?
I do. Peter, do Austin and Boise or other comparably sized cities have what you're lobbying for, and could we look to them for
They
ideas
absolutely
about how to
do,
structure?
yes. So these departments of cultural affairs in other cities function in a way that's kind of similar to what our state arts council looks like, the Nebraska Arts Council, only at a city level. So again, that includes grants to organizations, that includes grants to individual artists, and that also includes the administration of a 1% for Art program that funds public artwork and placemaking initiatives across the city.
Thank you.
Cal,
Other questions?
how are those programs funded? Do you know details about how that's done in the other cities?
They also use 1% for Art models. There are a few other models. There's a hotel tax model, there's a sale tax model. In my experience from living in other cities like New York and Los Angeles, 1% for Art models tend to generate quite a bit of revenue, and they tend to be pretty successful when it comes to supporting arts organizations and individual artists.
Okay. Other questions?
I just have one comment. I wear a different hat with the Omaha Library.
Oh,
And
awesome.
we are, the new downtown branch is going to be arts and culture centric. So get a hold of me later, because I would love to talk to you and your group about including you guys in there, because we want the arts in that library. That's going to be the theme. But that's
awesome.
off topic of this, so just get a hold of me through the commission.
Is it okay if I give you a business card?
Please.
Okay.
Yeah, so Peter, I just want to make a comment too. I appreciated your letter. I read through it.
Oh,
And I
thank
think
you.
everybody acknowledges how important the arts are, whether it's what you specified in your letter or the symphony as far as attraction and growth of the city itself. So I appreciate your comments.
I agree with that 100%. Thank you.
You can bring the card up.
Okay.
I have a question for you. If you could be clearer on how this is different from the current Arts Council, please.
So we have a state arts council. We do not have a city arts council, which is essentially what this would be, right? Omaha City Arts Council. Nebraska Arts Council serves the entire state, so their purview is a little different. Their focus is a little different. They have to, they get to work with rural communities and places outside of Omaha. When it comes to Omaha as a city, we have no standalone entity that oversees those sorts of activities.
Does Lincoln have a standalone entity?
I don't believe Lincoln has I might be wrong. I don't know a ton about Lincoln. They do?
Okay.
McPherson. So I appreciate your research. You mentioned Austin and Boise as your examples. I know for sure they have a state, and you mentioned that Austin and Boise both have city represented councils as well. Does that mean in Austin that Houston and Dallas and all those other cities, do each of them have city representation in addition to the state?
That's a really good question. So in Texas, I'm sure that it kind of looks like Nebraska, where it sort of varies from city to city. In Austin, I know that a big part of the reason for which they've been successful in attracting creative talent to live and work and call that place home has to do with the support that they get from a municipal level. I'm not super familiar with Houston or Dallas. I haven't researched a ton when it comes to those cities. I know that Texas has a state art council.
I know about it, right?
But not 100% sure when it comes to those other cities.
Yeah, it wasn't my intent to stump you. It was a question based on if one city is represented by something separate, in due fairness to others, they should be represented as well. That's it. But we'll look at it and we'll include it. We appreciate your voice.
Great. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, the bulk of my experience, I lived in New York for about 12 years. New York has a really strong municipal arts council as well as a really strong state arts council. So those two entities kind of working in concert with one another. I've obviously done a lot to make that city a really vibrant place for artists.
Well, we're glad to have you back in Nebraska.
I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. Next public comment.
Hello, my name is Joel Damon. I'm from 3905 Gold Street. I'll be brief because I agree with Peter and Amplify Arts. I believe, how about this? The longer I usually talk, the more trouble I get into. So I really believe artists can see the future. They understand things differently. They need to be supported at all levels. There's a lot of us in Omaha that love this city and love artists, and we've been working thanklessly for years growing all of this. And to see the opportunity for support to come on the municipal level is very exciting. So that's it. I'll let you guys get back to whatever you're doing. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me know, any questions
Question?
from the committee? There aren't any.
Oh, and I run Project, one of the galleries that was signed on to this.
Okay, thank you.
18th and Vinton, 1818 Vinton. And then I was curator at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts and curator of public art for the Art in the Parks project over in Council Bluffs. And I helped start the City Light Arts project up in Benson.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next person for public comments? Going once, going twice. It's your opportunity. Okay. With that, we'll end the public comment period. Just want to mention our next meeting is June 23rd. Is that next Thursday, I think? Next week sometime. Is there any other business before we split up into committees? Okay. Like I said earlier, the governance committee will be back here. The administration mayor's office up in that corner, finance over in that corner, human resources will be in the in the council meeting room there. These are open to the public too, by the way, so if anybody wants to sit and listen, it's not for comments, but you can sit and listen. And the purpose of these subcommittees will be to discuss the public comments. Bernard has put down the appropriate ones for each committee. When you're done with your committee, let me back up. Next meeting, we'd like you to present what the committee found. Pass this one on, don't pass this one on, that type of thing, so we can kind of narrow down the various suggestions. So somebody in the various committee will have to take notes at least. With that, Mr. Innerbosch, you have anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Oh, that's the other thing. No, when the committee's done, you can go home. Yes, that's the next item. Yes. So I guess with that, there's a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting for today.
Are we doing roll calls on this? Okay. Jesus. Okay, I guess we'll do a roll call.
Barker.
Feels like
Yes.
guilt.
Bonnet.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Couth.
Yes.
Kennedy.
Yes.
McPherson.
Yes.
Pendrell. Plucker. Presti.
Yes.
Quinn. Salgado. Sotolongo.
Yes.
Kratz. Motion passed.